Nitrogen and phosphorus are both naturally occurring elements that come in different forms as they cycle between the atmosphere, between soils, between waters and between biological life. Nitrogen and phosphorus naturally occur in rivers in low levels and they allow plants and algae to grow. But what can happen is that when those levels of those nutrients increase due to land use activities, industrial discharges or urbanisation, it can upset the balance of life in streams, upset the growth rates of plants and algae, but also even become toxic at very high levels. The water scientists like to measure the quantities of the different forms of nitrogen and phosphorus in water. Now the different forms and the relationships between them are quite complicated, but they do provide a lot of information about what's happening in the catchment, where these nutrients are coming from and what effects they might have upon the stream ecosystem, upon stock and upon human health. The nitrogen can come from multiple sources. It can come from industrial discharges, urban or agricultural runoff. One of the biggest sources of nitrogen into streams and groundwater in New Zealand is from urine patches from cattle, because there's so much nitrogen in a single small concentrated point that the plants within the soil, or the plants growing in the paddock, can't absorb it. And the nitrogen, which readily dissolves in water, leaches down through the soils into groundwater and may eventually upwell in spring-fed streams. Phosphorus naturally occurs in quite low quantities in New Zealand soils, so it's essential to add phosphate fertilisers to maintain the productivity of a farming system. So phosphorus behaves quite differently to nitrogen because rather than dissolving in water, it tends to bind to soil particles. And so the main pathway of phosphorus entering surface waters, entering streams, is through surface runoff when erosion or some form of discharge carries the phosphorus bound to the particles into the stream. So why does this matter? Well, in terms of the health of the stream, an excess supply of nutrients into the water can cause a sort of rampant growth of periphyton, of algae and of macrophytes. And this can upset the balance of the stream, and so what may happen is that the algae actually just smothers the bed of the stream, it smothers the gravel, it smothers the wood, and so the grazing insects can't access their food resource, and then the fish that feed on the grazing insects no longer have the food supply themselves, so it can upset the balance that way. Excessive nutrients, particularly nitrogen, can also result in a proliferation of potentially toxic cyanobacteria, which can be particularly dangerous for dogs. And another factor, depending upon the actual biomass of plant matter in the stream, is the effect on oxygen. Now, plants photosynthesize during the day and they're producing oxygen, but at night they cease to photosynthesize, but they carry on respiring, and so that draws down the oxygen levels in the streams. And in the hours before dawn, oxygen levels in a very weedy stream can become extremely low, which can affect the fish and the insects. And finally, dense growths of aquatic weeds, particularly some of the exotic macrophytes such as a monkey musk or a veronica or watercress, can cause flooding issues in the stream as they completely fill up the channel. And then in the event of a rain event, the water may jump out of the stream or begin to erode a bank. So there are all sorts of management implications due to excessive nutrients in water.